there's very little mandate for the hardest Brexit, which sadly is the trajectory that we are now on. But I wanted to make a wider point that I noticed that Evan represents the Labour Party in Paris. My mother and stepfather both live in Paris. They are as British as is possible. They were born in Britain. They are British citizens. They had no vote. So every time I hear the word "the British people have spoken," I like to remind people that 1 million or so British citizens living in the European Union, whose rights will now be taken away as a result of Brexit, had no vote at all because they've been out of the country for more than 15 years. And yet, bizarrely, a citizen of Rwanda, French-speaking, living in London, would have had a vote in the EU referendum. It's a very strange franchise that we had. The result was very narrow. My wife, not British citizen, EU citizen, had no vote. It was a narrow majority, and I just don't see where the mandate is for a radical, hardline Brexit detaching Britain entirely from all its connections, economic and foreign policy and security and all the others, from the continent of Europe. I think this is the wrong path. I want a soft Brexit. I'm disappointed we're not going to get that now.
So when you hear Jeremy Corbyn talking about having a white paper, rules that are set down the whole time that the negotiation process is going on, so that the government sticks to an agreed plan, do you agree with that, Charles Tannock?
I certainly believe that the government needs to be held to account. I have a lot of time for Theresa May, and she is the Prime Minister and leader of my party. But there hasn't been a general election, and there is no clear mandate for the hard Brexit, which is the policies which Theresa May is now pursuing. She has decided that's the course of action for the country. I am opposed to that. There will be other pro-European Conservatives opposed to it. There will be peers, there will be Labour, there will be SNP. And I think that the government needs to be held to account, because one of the promises that we had, particularly at the time of the Nissan deal, is that the British economy would get the best deal. There would not be a negative impact on British prosperity. If we now see the hard Brexit, in which we are Brexiting into a vacuum, into the WTO schedules, if we can take them with us, which will be, I think, very, very damaging to the British economy, including the City of London, which I represent, as jobs start to flow back to Paris, to Frankfurt, to Dublin, maybe to New York. Maybe President Trump is very happy about that. Some of the American banks may relocate back to Wall Street. These are things that I couldn't possibly take without criticising, and I think it's right that the House of Commons and the House of Lords have their say. Maybe there should have been a white paper. I think it's bizarre in a way that the main keynote speech made by Theresa May was in Lancaster House. It wasn't even made before the House of Commons. There seems to be an attempt to stifle debate on this key constitutional matter of exiting the European Union.
And just, Charles, very briefly, because we have to go to the break.
Electorate.
Just very briefly, should there be a snap election?
No, I think it's clear that Theresa May has ruled that out, and it's very, very difficult because we have a fixed-term parliament to overcome the rigours of the Act which determines that. I think it'd be very difficult to do that. But I personally do believe that at the end of the 2-year period, if the deal looks extremely damaging and negative, it wouldn't be unreasonable to have another referendum to get the endorsement of the British people. Right. And on this occasion, I mean the British people. I'd like all British citizens to vote, including my mother, who lives in Paris.
All right.